Hey guys, this is Thomas over here at nursemoneytalk.com. Now, I already made this video where I kind of just discussed just why you might want to consider, getting your master's in nursing. So I'm gonna take this a little bit further. And in this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna discuss a little bit about the pros and cons of getting your master's degree in nursing specifically. And so here's how it's going to be set up. I'm going to give you 5 pros of why I think you should consider getting your master's in nursing. And then I'm going to give you 5 cons of why, like getting a master's in nursing is going to suck. Now, that might not necessarily be a reason not to, but it is going to be something to think about. And then I'm going to throw in one other extra little caveat in there that, when people are talking about this, that I don't think really gets brought up enough. So make sure you stay till the very end so you get that last caveat. Now, before I get into this, if you're not already subscribed, I want to go ahead and invite you to hit that subscribe button on this channel. I talk about all things related to nursing student, and of course, nurse life. Last other quick little thing I'm going to mention is that if you are considering at any point to go get your master's in nursing, check out the school search page on Nurse Money Talk by going to nursemoneytalk.com/schools. Link will be in the descriptions below. So let's go ahead and get started. The first pro of getting your master's in nursing is that you really get to expand your practice, right? And so part of the ways you can expand your practice is that getting a master's, if you go the clinical route, will allow you to potentially become a CRNA, become a nurse practitioner, clinical nurse specialist, nurse midwives, and whatnot. So you actually get to expand and broaden your nursing practice, because now you get to be in a situation where you can in terms of treating, now you can diagnose medical conditions, and then as well as prescribing medications for treating those medical conditions. And so that is something that could be interesting, especially if, as you look towards some of those expanded roles, if any of that kind of interests you. And I guess to kind of throw into the expanded roles part, if you want to teach as a faculty in any of the nursing programs and whatnot, especially as you get into the BSN level and higher, you're really going to need like a master's and above for that. The second pro of getting your master's in nursing is that, generally speaking, you're going to make more money. Now, before the comments start rolling in, that's not always the case. It is true. It's not always the case necessarily, but I think in a lot of cases that's what's going to happen, because even if you look at the first part I mentioned with the expanded roles, you start looking at your CRNAs, your nurse practitioners, and whatnot, nurse midwives, and all that good stuff. Like, you look at their typical average pay, you're looking at north of 100K, so north of 6 figures. And CRNAs, of course, we all know is like, that's trending close to 200K. But you look at the average pay for like a registered nurse, it's south of 100K. You see what I'm saying? And so this is why I'm kind of throwing it in there that, with some thought as what you're going to do with the master's in nursing, if you do decide to go down that route, that there's a pretty good chance you're going to end up earning more money. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that in a lot of places, depending on who your employer is, they're going to pay you more, right? So like, the employer that I work with now, like if I got my master's, I would I would make more money. That's just kind of how it's set up. There's a lot of facilities and whatnot that are out there that just like they would like more staff who have the higher degrees for one reason or another. The third pro of really getting your master's in nursing is that now you have these higher level leadership, these higher level nursing leadership positions become available to you. Now, I'm not necessarily just talking about the nurse manager role per se, because I think usually you can typically get that with a bachelor's. But as you move past that middle nursing management and into these higher levels, your directors, like your, especially like, all the way up the top, like your chief nursing officer, or even because I think one of the presidents at one of the major hospitals in this area was a former nurse, or even a president of a hospital, a chief nursing officer type deal. These are, generally speaking, you're gonna be requiring like your higher level, nursing degrees, your masters and whatnot. And I guess it's worth throwing in there like potentially an MBA, but I think that is kind of a discussion for another video. The fourth point, and this is gonna be a pro for a lot of people, is that like some people will take a great sense of pride in the fact that they now have this degree. They now have this master's degree. They now, that they now can put like an MSN, whatever, 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 after the RN in their name. Some people take great pride in this. Now, I'm not necessarily one of those people. To me, like, the piece of paper is irrelevant. I care more about what I can do because of that piece of paper than the piece of paper in and of itself. But there are definitely people out there, and if you might be one of those where you are going to place a high value in that, or your family even is going to place a high value on that piece of paper, and that is 100% fine. So that is something to think about. The fifth point, and this is a really good one, is that a lot of times getting this master's in nursing, because of all the other points that I've mentioned already, that I mentioned already, or even ones I didn't mention, is that it allows you to leave bedside nursing. And so, you might be wondering, why is this a pro? Depending on how you're kind of built when it comes to, your nursing practice, you might not quite understand why this is a pro, but there are some nurses out there who they would like an opportunity to leave the bedside. They don't wanna, or they don't want to work in bedside nursing, or they're burnt out of bedside nursing. And so I think being able to have that option to be able to leave bedside nursing, a lot of people are gonna really find that as definitely a pro. Now, I will kind of mention that I think one of the other reasons why I throw the ability to leave bedside nursing, or two other reasons. One, you don't necessarily have to. It just opens up more doors for you to do that. But the other reason why I mention that is that generally the most physical aspect of nursing, the ones that are going to really just tear your body down and cause a lot of physical pain and aches down the road, are usually going to be your bedside nursing positions, the ones where you're doing direct patient care. And so that is just something to keep in mind. Now, before I move over to the cons of going after your master's in nursing, let me go ahead and mention real quick that if you are considering of going to nursing school to get your maybe you're watching this and you don't have a nursing degree at all, to get your BSN, your MSN, or even your DNP or PhD in nursing, check out the school search page on Nurse Money Talk by going to nursemoneytalk.com/schools. Link will also be in the descriptions below. Let's go ahead and keep going. The first con of getting your master's in nursing is that it's expensive. I mean, it's expensive, and you could potentially go in debt. Have to go in student debt for it, or private debt, whatever. Debt or no debt, out of pocket or no out of pocket, it's expensive. Even for me, like I paid several $1,000s for this current semester that I'm in for my graduate program, and I might make a separate video actually talking specifically on how much. Actually, I am going to make that video talking specifically on how much I paid for my grad program or for this semester and kind of like what that breakdown looks like. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video when that comes out. But I paid several $1,000s just for this semester. And so it's not cheap. And the thing about it is like the program I'm going to, it's not even one of the more expensive. There are ones that cost, 2, 3 times more than what my program actually costs me. And so that is something to keep in mind, is that it's gonna cost you a lot in terms of money. The second point to keep in mind is that it's not that it's just going to cost you a lot in terms of money, is that it's going to cost you a lot in terms of free time. And that is that you're just going to lose a lot of your free time, because now you're back in school. And this can get really frustrating if you've been out of school for a good while. You've been working for a couple years, and now you kind of have to get back into the grind of, studying, taking tests, studying. And if you're into clinical routes, clinicals, writing papers even. And so these are the things that are going to take away a lot of your free time. And that gets you to my third point, which is that master's in nursing program is going to be hard and it's going to be stressful. And when I say it's hard and stressful, it's not that, it's not doable or that you can't do it. Plenty of other students before you have done it, and plenty after you will do it. But it's going to be hard, it's going to be stressful, it's going to cause you some pain. Like it's unlikely to be something you can breeze through, especially since a lot of you're not going to be that traditional student. So you're not just going to be in a situation where you're just not going to be working. You're just going to be going to school, and that's going to school and studying is all you're going to be doing. No, 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 no. Many of you, especially since a lot of the masters, nursing students are older and whatnot. Many of you, you're going to have a spouse or long-term significant other, whatever. You're probably going to have kids, or parents to take care of or whatever. You're going to have other responsibilities, and all of that is going to compound to make things more difficult for you. And then this alone, all of this that I mentioned, will get me to my fourth point, which is that you're going to feel like it's going to take forever. And that is my next con, is that it's going to feel like it takes forever, even if maybe it doesn't. I guess it depends on what your concept of, like, like 2.5 years or whatever, going full time, what that's going to feel like. But regardless, for many of you, it's going to feel like it's taking forever. It's going to feel like things are dragging on. And so that is the thing you're going to have to keep in mind. My fifth point is that for many of these masters in nursing programs, they can be competitive and at times hard to get into. Now, from my experience, you'll probably, there's so many of these programs that you'll probably find a program you can get into, but it's going to be hard to get into. The hardest one generally to get into is the CRNA programs. And so it's going to be all the things that are going to add to make things, more stressful for you. Now, for my final point, the one that I said that so many people, I think, when they're having this discussion, don't really think so much about, is that now that if you get your master's, right? This is especially if you go the clinical route. You've expanded your practice, and because you've expanded your practice, now you've also expanded your legal responsibilities, right? You are now that provider. That's, when, nurses, they can always, like, well, I'm going to call the physician and I'm going to put it back on them, or I'm going to call the provider, the NP, the PA, whatever, and let them make that decision. That is you. You are going to be that person that will then have to make that decision. And so there's going to be more legal responsibilities. on you. Like if something goes wrong, I remember when this was many years ago when I was talking to, my state board of nursing. It was about like, being a nurse and working as a CNA and whatnot. Cause I had heard some people say some stuff when I was at school with some students. And so I wanted to talk to them. The students didn't really know what they were talking about. But one of the things that happened during that conversation was that they said that, yeah, sure, you can work as a CNA or as a nurse tech. It doesn't really matter. But if something goes wrong, we're going to hold you to your highest level of licensure. It's not, just because you're working as a tech, if something goes wrong, we're not going to be looking at what happened as, this is a tech and then this situation happened. No, we're going to look at it. This is somebody who is licensed as an RN and then this negative thing happened. I say this to kind of bring it back to this is that if, as you're working, like let's assume you're working as a nurse practitioner or CRNA or whatever, and something goes wrong, they're not going to look at it as, oh, this is an LPN and then something bad went wrong. They're not going to be looking at it as like, this is an RN and something went wrong. They're going to be looking at it, this is an advanced practice nurse and then something went wrong. What was their responsibility? What would a reasonable, advanced practice, registered nurse in that situation, what would they do and whatnot, and all those legal mumbo jumbo. I'm not giving you, obviously I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving you legal advice, but I'm just kind of saying some of the things that I've heard and I've kind of seen over the years, just kind of some things to keep in mind is that burden of that legal responsibility once you take that next step, assuming, obviously that, if you go the clinical route. But yeah, what do you think? Is there any pros or any cons that you can think of that I missed? Let me know in the comment sections below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you very soon in that next video.